A man left work on Friday afternoon, but instead of going home, he stayed out the entire weekend hunting with the boys and spending his entire paycheck. When he finally appeared at home on Sunday night, his wife was understandably upset with him. She expressed her frustration for nearly 2 hours, and finally, she stopped the nagging. She asked him how he would feel if he didn't see her for a few days. He replied that he would be fine with that. Monday came and went, and he didn't see his wife. Tuesday and Wednesday passed with the same result. On Thursday, the swelling went down just enough for him to see her a little out of the corner of his left eye. A mechanic was removing a cylinder head from the engine of a Lamborghini when he saw a well-known heart surgeon in his shop. The surgeon was waiting for the service manager to take a look at his car when the mechanic called out, "Hey doc, can I ask you a question?" The surgeon, a bit surprised, walked over to where the mechanic was working on the car. The mechanic straightened up, wiped his hands on his rag and said, "Sure doc, what's on your mind?" His hands on a rag, he said, "Doc, look at this engine. I open its heart, take the valves out, fix them, and put them back in. When I'm done, it works just like new. So why do I get such a small salary and you get the really big bucks when we're basically doing the same thing?" The surgeon paused, smiled, leaned over, and whispered to the mechanic, "Try doing it with the engine running." The forest animals decided that they didn't like having to step in crap every day, so they got together and built an outhouse. Everything was great and the forest floor was much cleaner after that. But one day they found out the window of the outhouse was broken, so they held a meeting and asked if anybody knew anything about the broken window. The rabbits were the first to speak up. "I'm a bit embarrassed," they said, "but last night I was using the outhouse when the bear came. And he grabbed me, did his business, then he wiped his bottom with me and threw me out the window." The animals reprimanded the bear and made him fix the window. After a couple of days, the door was smashed. Another meeting was called, and again the animals were asked if anybody knew anything about the broken door. The fox said, "I'm embarrassed, but last night I was using the outhouse. The bear came in. He did the same thing with me as with a rabbit a few days ago, but he threw me out through the door. The bear did the same thing with me a few days ago, but he threw me out through the door." So the animals reprimanded him again and made him repair the door. They also explained that his behavior would not be tolerated. Then, 2 days later, the whole outhouse was destroyed. It was completely smashed to pieces. A meeting was called to find out if anybody knew about it. The porcupine sheepishly said, "I'm a bit embarrassed." An elderly couple were driving across the country. The woman was driving when she got pulled over by the highway patrol. The officer said, "Ma'am, did you know you were speeding?" The woman turned to her husband and asked, "What did he say?" The old man yelled, "He says you were speeding." The patrolman said, "May I see your license?" The woman turned to her husband and asked, "What did he say?" The officer said, "The old man yelled, 'I want to see your license.' The woman gave him her license. He said, 'I see you are from Arkansas. I spent some time there once and went on a blind date with the ugliest woman I've ever seen.' The woman turned to her husband and asked, 'What did he say?' The old man yelled, 'He thinks he knows you.'" One Friday night, Patrick went up to his friend Patty and said, "Patty, I need a favor. I'm sleeping with the bartender's wife. Can you hold him in the pub for an hour after it closes?" Patty wasn't keen on the idea, but as Patrick was a lifelong friend, she agreed. After the pub closed, Patty started chatting with the bartender, asking him all sorts of questions to keep him occupied. After a while, the bartender got suspicious and asked Patty what she was really up to with all of this. Patty, feeling guilty and remorseful, confessed to the bartender that her friend Patrick was sleeping with his wife right then and there and had asked her to keep him occupied. The bartender smiled, put a brotherly hand on Patty's shoulder and said, "I think you'd better hurry home. My wife died 2 years ago." A young blonde woman had been married for about a year when one day she came running up to her husband, jumping for joy. He was so surprised he didn't know how to react. She told him, "Honey, I have some really great news for you." "What is it?" he asked. "I'm pregnant," she replied, out of breath from all the jumping up and down. The husband was overjoyed as they had been trying for a baby. He was overjoyed and kissed her and told her how wonderful it was. She said, "Oh, honey, there's more." He asked, "What do you mean more?" She replied, "Well, we're not having just one baby. We're going to have twins." He was amazed at how she could know so soon after getting pregnant. He asked her how she knew it was twins. She said, "I went to the pharmacy and bought the 2-pack home pregnancy test kit. Both tests came back positive." Mr. Smith went to the doctor's office to collect his wife's test results. The receptionist told him, "I'm sorry, sir, but there's been a bit of a mix-up. When we sent the samples from your wife to the lab, the sample from another Mrs. Smith was sent as well. So we are now." The receptionist said they were unsure which one was your wife's. "That's either bad or terrible," Mr. Smith said. The receptionist replied, "Well, one Mrs. Smith has tested positive for Alzheimer's disease and the other one for AIDS. We can't tell which is your wife." "That's terrible," Mr. Smith said. "Can we do something about it?" "The test results are in, but there's a catch. You have an HMO, so they won't pay for these expensive tests more than once. What do you do now?" Mr. Smith asked. The receptionist replied that the doctor recommends you drop your wife off in the middle of town. If she finds her way home, don't sleep with her. A man walks into a quiet bar and orders a cold beer. He takes the beer over to a table and sits down. After a few sips of his beer, he hears a small voice say, "Nice shoes." He looks around, but he is the only one in the bar except for the bartender, who is occupied cleaning the other end of the bar. The man shrugs it off and goes back to his drink. A few minutes later, another small voice says, "Nice shirt." The man looks around, but he can see nobody, and he's sure his mind isn't playing tricks on him. He's now on guard, listening for any reoccurrences. After a few minutes, a third small voice says, "Nice pants." This time he's sure it is not his imagination, so he goes up to the bartender and tells him what's happened. "Oh yeah, that happens all the time," the bartender says, pointing to the small bowl on the guy's table. "They're complimentary. Don't forget to like video. Thanks."